At just 16, Lamine Yamal became more than a footballer. He became a global phenomenon. The youngest star to shine on one of the biggest stages in Europe, a boy with the weight of dreams resting on his shoulders. Every touch, every pass, every goal seemed to whisper a promise that a new era had begun. But when fame comes early, distractions follow even faster. The story of Lamine's rise is one that inspired millions. A kid from the streets of Spain, shaped by passion and pure love for football. Coaches admired his discipline. Fans celebrated his humility. But lately, something has started to change. A new side of Lamine began to appear, one that many didn't expect from a player so young, so gifted, so destined for greatness. When you play for a club like Barcelona, the pressure never sleeps. Every match, every training session, every decision you make, the world is watching. And for a teenager suddenly surrounded by cameras, fame, and constant social media buzz, it's easy to lose focus. That's where things started to shift for Lamine Yamal. Recently, his name has been linked with a popular singer, Nicole. For some, it looked like a sweet young romance, a story of two rising stars finding comfort in each other. But for those who have seen talent fade under the weight of distractions, it raised red flags. Because football and fame are not kind to those who lose balance. One mistake, one wrong focus, and a dream that took years to build can begin to crumble in days. At first, it was harmless. A few public appearances, pictures on social media, a little attention that seemed innocent. But slowly, the spotlight began to shift from his game to his personal life. Reporters asked more about his relationship than his training. Fans started debating his off-field choices instead of his on-field brilliance. The noise began to grow louder than the football itself. And this is where the danger lies. For a player like Lamine, who is still developing, every day of practice matters. Every session sharpens his edge. But when your mind starts drifting, thinking about messages, media, events, and appearances, that sharpness dulls. That's the silent trap of fame. You don't see it coming until your game begins to fade. Some of his recent matches have already raised eyebrows. Missed chances, moments of hesitation. The spark that once separated him from everyone else seemed dimmer. Critics noticed, coaches whispered, and fans started wondering, is Lamine losing focus? Or worse, is he losing himself? Nicole might not be the problem. She's not the villain in this story. But the timing, the attention, the way Lamine's personal and professional life have begun to mix, that's the real danger. Because once a player allows emotion to lead over discipline, the fall becomes inevitable. Football doesn't forgive carelessness. It doesn't wait for anyone to fix their mistakes. It moves on cold and fast, leaving behind those who stop giving their 100%. Many legends have warned about this path. They've seen careers destroyed not by injuries, but by distractions. The field doesn't care about your love life or fame. It only rewards sweat, focus, and hunger. And when those begin to fade, the results tell the story louder than words ever can. People close to Lamine say he's still working hard, still training, still chasing his dream. But even they admit the focus is slipping. You can see it in the eyes of a player who once burned with obsession, now caught between the excitement of youth and the responsibility of greatness. It's a dangerous crossroads, one wrong turn, and everything he's built can vanish before he even reaches 20. In the game of football, maturity isn't measured by age. It's measured by how you handle the temptations that come with fame. Many young stars have walked this same road, and only a few made it out stronger. The rest became forgotten names, reminders of what could have been. Lamine Yamal's journey isn't over. It's just beginning. But this is the moment that will define him. Can he separate his personal life from his professional dream? Can he silence the noise, ignore the headlines, and return to the focus that made him unstoppable? Or will he let distractions slowly take away everything that made him special? Every choice matters now. Every day without full concentration is a step closer to regret. The crowd still cheers his name, the world still believes in his future, but belief means nothing if he doesn't believe in discipline. Because talent is a gift, but discipline is a decision. And right now, the world is watching to see which decision Lamine Yamal will make. As the weeks passed, the whispers around Lamine Yamal began to grow louder. It wasn't the kind of attention a player wants. What once were cheers for his dazzling footwork and confidence on the pitch slowly turned into murmurs of concern. The boy who once electrified the stadium every time he touched the ball now seemed distracted. The brilliance was still there, flashes of magic that reminded everyone of what he could be. But something invisible had changed. Teammates noticed it first. The quiet look during warm-ups, the moments where he stared into nothing instead of focusing on drills, the phone that buzzed too often when it should have been face down in the locker. For a teenager, these are small, harmless moments. But in professional football, where every second of focus defines your performance, these moments become warnings. The coaches tried not to make it public, but even they couldn't hide their frustration. Training intensity dropped. Some sessions ended with the manager pulling Lamine aside for long, serious talks. Not about tactics, but about life, focus, and the danger of fame. The staff saw what fans couldn't. The spark of obsession was fading, and in football, when obsession fades, everything else follows. Behind the scenes, the club started noticing patterns. Late arrivals to training, skipped recovery routines, and a visible drop in energy during matches. It wasn't exhaustion, it was distraction. The kind that drains the mind before it even touches the body. Cameras still loved him, social media still praised him, but those who lived and breathed football knew that this version of Lamine was walking on a thin edge. Then came the headlines. The paparazzi photos, the interviews, the gossip. Lamine Yamal and Nicole spotted together again. It exploded across social media. Comment sections filled with mixed opinions. Some defended him, saying he's young and deserves a life beyond football. Others warned, saying this is exactly how many young stars lose their way. The truth? Both sides were right. He's young, but football doesn't care about youth when the level is elite. The game demands complete devotion, a sacrifice that most people can't understand until it's too late. His teammates respected him, but even they began to sense the tension. Some older players, veterans who had seen this story unfold too many times, tried to talk to him. They warned him gently, reminding him that fame is temporary, but legacy is forever. They told him stories of other players who had it all and lost everything. Not because they weren't talented, but because they forgot what truly mattered. And yet, it's hard to blame him. Imagine being 16, adored by millions, dating a celebrity, and living a dream most people can't even imagine. To stay grounded under that pressure requires more than talent. It requires wisdom far beyond your years. Lamine was still learning, still figuring out who he was, but the world demanded he act like a man, not a teenager. The pressure became suffocating. Every game now felt heavier. Cameras zoomed closer, commentators analyzed his every move, and fans debated if the relationship was ruining him. The world that once cheered for him now expected him to prove he hadn't lost focus. Every mistake on the field became a headline. Every missed chance became a trending topic. Slowly, he began to feel the weight of his choices. The excitement that once filled him before matches turned into anxiety. Football, once his escape, began to feel like a battlefield. He could hear the noise, not from the crowd, but from the doubts in his own mind. He started asking himself the questions everyone else was whispering. Am I losing it? Have I let the world distract me? Nicole, on her side, wasn't the villain in his life. She genuinely cared for him. But the constant attention, the photos, the fan gossip, it all turned their young relationship into a circus. What could have been a quiet, private bond became a public performance. And Lamine, still too young to handle the storm of media and emotion, started drowning in it. His coach noticed. During one post-match press conference, when asked about Lamine's recent performances, the coach sighed before answering. He didn't criticize him directly, but his words carried meaning. Every player needs to remember why they started. Talent must always come before everything else. It was a message for Lamine, hidden in plain sight. Even the fans began to sense it, the hesitation in his play, the drop in sharpness, the frustration after missing easy chances. Those moments where he would once lift the entire team with a moment of brilliance were now replaced by silence, by disappointment. He was still the same player, but not the same mind. Football is cruel like that. It doesn't wait for you to find balance. It doesn't slow down so you can figure out your emotions. It keeps moving, and if you're not moving with it, you're left behind. At home, alone after training, Lamine started replaying his matches, not for tactics, but for mistakes. He saw the passes he missed, the runs he didn't make, the energy that wasn't there. And he felt something he hadn't felt before, fear. Fear of losing what he had worked so hard to gain. Fear of becoming another story people tell about wasted potential. He knew he had to make a choice soon. Either step back from the noise, refocus on the game, and rebuild his discipline, or continue down the path that was slowly pulling him away from his destiny. Every minute spent scrolling through social media, every event he attended instead of resting, was a silent chip away from his greatness. And the football world? It doesn't forgive lost time. The younger players coming up behind him were hungry, focused, and ready to take his spot. The same fans who once adored him would soon turn to the next rising star. That's how it works. Football is not sentimental. It replaces you the moment you stop giving it everything. The danger wasn't that Lamine was dating someone. The real danger was that he forgot how thin the line is between success and downfall. A few more missed trainings, a few more bad games, and the trust of the coach, the fans, and the club could begin to fade. This chapter in his life would define everything that comes next. Will he listen to the warnings? Will he remember the boy who played just for the love of the ball, before the fame, before the distractions, before the noise? Because every legend in football has faced this moment, the crossroad between passion and temptation, discipline and distraction. Some, like Cristiano Ronaldo, chose to block out everything and dedicate their lives to perfection. Others didn't. Now it's Lamine's turn to choose, and somewhere, deep down, he knows, if he doesn't find focus again, the boy wonder the world fell in love with might just become another name in the long list of what could have been. There comes a point in every young star's life when the noise becomes too loud to ignore. For Lamine Yamal, that moment arrived quietly, not in a packed stadium or under flashing cameras, but in the silent corner of a dimly lit locker room after another disappointing performance. His boots lay at his feet, muddy and untied. His jersey clung to him, drenched in sweat and frustration. Around him, the sound of his teammates laughing, chatting, and moving on echoed like a distant hum. But inside him, there was only silence. The heavy kind that follows realization. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. The boy staring back wasn't the same kid who used to light up every training session, who smiled even after tough matches, who played football like it was a language only he could speak. The sparkle in his eyes, the one that once told the world he was destined for greatness, was fading. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. The coach's warnings, the critics' comments, even the whispers from his teammates, they weren't just noise anymore. They were signals. He had drifted too far. The late-night messages, the missed gym sessions, the endless scrolling through social media, the focus on how he looked instead of how he played. It all started connecting in his mind that he remembered the early days, training in the rain, chasing the ball barefoot, dreaming of wearing that Barcelona jersey. He remembered how he promised himself that nothing would ever take his focus away from the game. Yet here he was, living every young player's dream but slowly losing the hunger that built it. That night, he didn't go home right away. He sat in the empty stadium, the floodlights dimming one by one. The stands, once roaring with energy, were now ghostly quiet. He stared at the pitch, the same field that had made him a star, and whispered softly to himself, "What am I doing?" The truth hit him hard. Football was slipping away from him, not because he wasn't talented enough, but because he let other things matter more. Love, fame, validation, they had all started to fill the space that used to belong entirely to football. He wasn't angry at Nicole. She wasn't the cause. She was just part of a world that he hadn't learned to balance. The real problem was inside him, a loss of discipline, a loss of direction. Days later, a private meeting was called between him, the coach, and a few senior staff members. The conversation was honest, brutally honest. The coach didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just looked at Lamine and said, "You're special, kid, but being special doesn't mean anything if you forget why you're here. The world is full of players who had everything and lost it because they thought talent was enough. Don't be one of them." Those words burned into his memory. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the legends who came before him, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, and how every one of them had moments of temptation. But they chose the hard road. They chose to sacrifice what they wanted now for what they wanted most. He realized that greatness doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from recognizing your mistakes and having the courage to change. And that's when something inside him began to shift. The next morning, Lamine arrived at training earlier than anyone else. The staff noticed. The first one to unlock the locker room found him already stretching, headphones on, eyes closed, focusing. No cameras, no phone, no noise, just him and the ball again. For the first time in weeks, he smiled during drills. The rhythm was coming back. Of course. The change didn't happen overnight. He still battled distractions. Messages still came, headlines still buzzed, and the pressure didn't disappear. But his priorities began to realign. He started training longer, staying after sessions to work on his weaknesses. The same journalists who once wrote about his lack of focus began noticing his renewed energy on the field. The spark was returning. Nicole, too, noticed the change. Their conversations became quieter, more mature. She understood that football was his world and that she couldn't stand in the way of it. Slowly, their public appearances faded. Lamine started keeping his private life truly private. What happened between them stayed between them, not for the internet, not for the headlines, just for themselves. The transformation didn't just show in his training, it exploded in his performance. In one crucial match, when everyone expected him to falter again, he stunned the crowd. Every touch had purpose. Every run had fire. The fans saw it. The commentators felt it. It was the return of the boy who once played with joy and fearlessness. The entire stadium rose when he scored a brilliant goal. Not just because of the goal itself, but because it symbolized something deeper, redemption. After the match, instead of posting on social media or celebrating at events, Lamine stayed back again. The coach approached him and simply said, "That's the Lamine I know." He nodded, smiling softly. "That's the Lamine I missed," he replied. From then on, something powerful took root inside him. The understanding that fame, relationships, and success mean nothing without discipline. He began to structure his life differently. Phone off during training, limited media appearances, focus on recovery, strict rest schedules. The same people who once doubted his maturity now started praising his growth. But most importantly, Lamine realized something that would stay with him forever, that talent is borrowed, but commitment is earned. You can be gifted today and forgotten tomorrow if you don't nurture your gift. Football doesn't reward comfort. It rewards consistency. He began to fall in love with the grind again. The quiet mornings, the sweat, the repetition. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. That's where greatness lives, in the hours no one sees. And slowly, people stopped talking about his personal life. They started talking about his game again. His focus returned, and with it, his fire. The same journalists who once wrote, "Is Yamal distracted?" now wrote, "Yamal is back." But deep inside, he knew the truth. He was never gone. He had just lost his way for a moment. What mattered was that he found the strength to come back. Every legend has a turning point. This was his. The chapter where he stopped being a boy chasing fame and became a man chasing greatness. And he understood something that most players take years to learn, that your personal life should never control your professional destiny. Football is a gift that gives you everything until the moment you stop respecting it. Lamine learned that the hard way, and from that moment on, he swore he'd never take it for granted again. Because for Lamine Yamal, the game wasn't just about goals or glory. It was his identity, his purpose, his life, and now he was ready to protect it, no matter what distractions tried to pull him away again.